I pulled the worn-out suitcase along the narrow road leading into town, the same path I had quietly taken out of here 4 years ago. In my arms, I carried Lily, my 3-year-old daughter. She slept soundly, her head resting on my shoulder, her steady breathing gently brushing against my neck. That warmth tightened something in my chest. I didn't know exactly what I was hoping for, but one thing lingered in my mind. A hug from my mother, a smile from my father, and at the very least, a simple, kind greeting from my sister. The house came into view. Still the same one-story American-style home with a wide porch where I had grown up, run and played, cried from scraped knees, and laughed in the comfort of warm embraces. I took a deep breath, set the suitcase down, and reached out to ring the doorbell. The door opened. My mother stood there. She wore a faded beige sweater, her face frozen in place when she saw me. Her eyes widened, the pupils shifting as if she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. She blurted out, "Rose? Why didn't you call or text before coming?" Oh my God, and who is this child? I tried to stay calm, forcing a strained smile. "Hi, Mom, this is my daughter. Her name is Lily." Before I could say anything more, the sound of high heels echoed from inside. My sister Stella appeared in a figure-hugging, trendy dress, her face carefully made up. She looked me up and down, then her gaze settled on Lily. "Rose? Haven't heard from you in ages. Thought you'd vanished from the state. And this little one? What's her story?" I set Lily down, took her hand gently, and said softly, "This is my daughter. Say hi to Auntie Stella, sweetheart." Stella smirked. She made no effort to hide the mockery in her eyes. "Oh. So, you went off to make a career and came back with a whole kid? That's a surprise." The living room looked exactly the same as the last time I left. The old sofa still sat in the corner, the fireplace no longer as warm as it used to be, and my father was there, sitting with his eyes fixed on the TV screen, though clearly not paying attention to anything that was playing. I had barely sat down when my father's cold voice rang out. "How long are you planning to stay?" I hesitated. "Well, I was thinking..." Before I could finish, Stella cut in. "If you're planning to stay long, where are you going to sleep? Your room is my yoga and storage space now. It's cramped. There's no way it can fit 2 more people." I tried to stay calm and gave a small nod. "I can manage anywhere. I don't mind." My mother spoke up, trying to mediate. "Let's just make some temporary arrangements for your sister to stay. She just got back." Stella didn't miss the chance to strike again. "By the way, sis, who's the father of the kid? You've never mentioned him. Or is there no father at all?" I clenched the hand resting on my thigh. My voice started to tremble as I struggled to stay composed. "Stella, do you really have to talk like that? My life is my business." My mother immediately chimed in without a moment's thought. "Rose, your sister has a point. You disappeared for years and suddenly came back with a child, without a word about the father. Of course people are going to ask. Our family has a good reputation in this community. We can't give the neighbors anything to gossip about." I looked down at Lily. She didn't understand everything, but she clearly sensed the tension. She shrank back and clung tightly to my leg. I gently brushed her hair, my chest tightening. The judgment in my mother's eyes, the coldness from my father, and Stella's venomous tone made me feel like I had never truly belonged to this family. Stella stood up from the chair, crossed her arms, and curled her lips into a smug smile. She walked in a slow circle around me, her eyes scanning me as if I were some pitiful failure. The air in the room grew heavier, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. She spoke again, her voice light but laced with provocation. Suddenly, I remembered, in the past few years, the money you sent back got less and less. Is it because of this burden you're carrying that you stopped sending money to help cover my tuition and living expenses? Stella's words made the blood in my veins boil. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back, but everything inside me had already reached its limit. My voice broke out, trembling with anger. "Stella, watch your mouth. That's your niece you're talking about." My mother immediately shouted, not caring about the details. "Rose, you're the older sister. You should give in to her. She's not wrong. You went out to work, sending money home to support your sister's studies. That's what you were supposed to do. And now, all of a sudden, there's no money, and you come back with another mouth to feed. Do you expect your parents to take care of everything?" I turned to look at my mother. My chest tightened. Every word from her pierced straight into my heart like needles. "Supposed to? Do you even know how I've been living?" Every month, I worked 2 or 3 shifts, skipping meals, wearing old clothes, just to send money for her college, her makeup, her designer clothes. And me, what did I get? When I was at my lowest, alone in that cramped apartment, was anyone there for me? Now that I'm back, before I can even rest, I'm being interrogated and mocked like a criminal. Having this child was my choice, and I don't regret it. The air in the room froze for a few seconds, but then Stella burst out laughing. Her laugh was sharp as a blade, echoing through the room. Oh, how dramatic. "Your choice, huh? Then don't be surprised when people call her a fatherless child." I stood up. My whole body was trembling, my vision blurred with tears. In that moment, every bit of restraint inside me vanished. I could hear the scream inside my heart. Then a slap rang out, sharp and clear in the air. Stella froze, clutching her cheek, her eyes wide with shock and hatred. The whole room fell silent. No one said a word. I could hear my own ragged breathing and Lily's muffled sobs in my arms. My mother screamed, rushing to hold Stella, her voice trembling but full of reproach. "Rose, are you insane? How dare you hit your sister?" My father stood up, his face flushed red, pointing a finger straight at me. "Ungrateful girl, you've barely been home a day and you dare to hit your sister. Get upstairs right now." I held Lily tightly. She was trembling, her face buried deep into my shoulder. I said nothing more. I walked slowly up the stairs, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the familiar, yet unbearably cold house. When the door closed behind me, I sank to the floor beside the unopened suitcase. Lily was still sobbing softly, her tiny hands clinging to my shirt. Downstairs, I could hear my mother comforting Stella, her voice laced with scolding meant for me. I closed my eyes and felt the loneliness wrapping around me like a second skin. Our first dinner after yesterday's incident unfolded under a suffocating cloud of tension. I sat at one end of the table, quietly spooning porridge for Lily, trying to keep my hands from shaking. She ate slowly, each small spoonful requiring a gentle word of encouragement. Across the table, Stella stared into her phone, not bothering to look up. My mother kept placing food into her bowl, her voice soft and doting. "Stella, eat up, sweetie. These are your favorite grilled ribs. I made a whole plate just for you. Better eat them now, or someone else might find them tasty and finish them all." I heard every word, but kept my head down and stayed silent. I didn't want to touch any of the dishes on the table. Everything felt unfamiliar and cold. I only wanted Lily to finish eating quickly, so we could retreat from this table soaked in favoritism. Stella glanced at the child, then wrinkled her nose like she had smelled something foul. "Rose, your little one's dropping food all over the table. It's so unsanitary. The house always reeks of yogurt and that damp baby smell. It's honestly unbearable. I looked up and tried to force a polite smile, though it came out stiff. She's still young. All kids are like this. I'll clean up right after she finishes. My father kept his head down, eating without looking at anyone, but his voice came out heavy. She's old enough to start learning discipline. Don't let her grow up spoiled and unruly like... I set the spoon down, my voice rising before I could stop it. Like what? Say it. Like what? He didn't answer. He just shook his head slightly and kept chewing slowly. That silence, that cold indifference, hurt more than any scolding ever could. I clenched my fists and forced myself to swallow the lump in my throat. Just then, Lily reached for her cup of milk. In a blink, the glass slipped from her tiny hand and spilled across the table, soaking the fresh tablecloth we had just replaced that morning. Stella jumped up, screaming as if someone had poured boiling soup all over her. Oh my God, seriously? That little brat just ruined my new t-shirt. It's a designer piece. Now it's covered in milk. My mother immediately dropped her chopsticks and rushed over with a towel to clean Stella up, her face full of worry. Then she turned to me, her voice sharp and furious. Rose, can you not watch her properly? You've only been back a few days and it's been nothing but trouble. I shot up from my chair and pulled Lily into my arms. She started sobbing, her little body trembling in fear. My voice shook, but every word came out like lead. She's your granddaughter. She's your own flesh and blood. How can you talk about her like that? Stella didn't waste a second. She let out a cold, mocking laugh, then said loud and clear for everyone to hear. Granddaughter? Who's even claiming her? Who knows who the father is anyway? I didn't respond. I just lowered my head and buried my face into my daughter's hair. The faint smell of milk on her shirt made my eyes sting. On Sunday morning, I took Lily out to the front yard to play. The weather was nice, the sun soft and gentle. I thought a bit of fresh air might help her forget last night's horror, even if only for a while. But even in what looked like a peaceful morning, the undercurrents were still there, pulsing just beneath the surface. A few neighbors sat nearby sipping their coffee. When they saw me, the chatter stopped. They exchanged glances, their looks full of quiet judgment. I pretended not to notice, smiled at Lily, and pointed at the patch of grass. She squealed and ran over, her eyes lighting up when she spotted a Barbie doll resting on a bench. I recognized it immediately. It was Stella's. Lily reached out to touch it, but I stopped her just in time. Lily, don't touch that. It belongs to Aunt Stella. No sooner had I spoken than Stella stepped out of the house. Without saying a word, she snatched the doll out of Lily's hands. Her voice rang out, loud and clear, clearly meant for everyone nearby to hear. A kid who hasn't been properly raised shouldn't go grabbing other people's things. This doll is expensive. If she breaks it, how's your mother going to pay for it? Probably couldn't afford it even after a whole month of work. Lily burst into tears. She backed away, hands covering her face, her mouth trembling as she cried out for me. I rushed over and held her close, gently patting her back, while my chest burned like someone had poured salt into an open wound. One of the neighbors spoke up, her voice kind but tinged with curiosity. Now, Stella? Don't be upset. She's just a child. She probably didn't know. Stella changed her tone instantly. She lowered her head and replied softly, playing the part of the misunderstood girl. I wish I could, ma'am. But you see, my sister spoils her too much. She's been living in the big city, and now she acts all strange. We didn't hear a word from her for years, and now she just shows up with a kid, no father in sight. Honestly, it's been really stressful and embarrassing for our family. We just don't talk about it. I stood frozen. Her words dropped like stones into still water, sending ripples of judgment through every glance that followed. I didn't need to look up to know what they were thinking. They had already believed her. Stella, with her sweet voice and carefully groomed appearance. And I, holding my daughter and dressed in worn clothes, stood there like an outsider in the very place I once called home. I clutched Lily tighter and lowered my head as we walked out of the yard. Being publicly humiliated didn't just hurt me. It chipped away at the fragile sense of security I was trying to give my daughter. But I knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. And the shame I felt today was something I would never forget. That afternoon, the air inside the small house felt heavier than ever. I was crouched in the cramped room, cleaning up. I folded Lily's old clothes and a few toys she had brought from the city, stacking them neatly in a corner, as if to make space for our mere existence. In the living room, the TV was blaring. Laughter and voices occasionally broke through, each one tightening something in my chest. Stella was sitting on the couch with a man I had never seen before. I assumed he was her new boyfriend. They were chatting loudly, as if no one else lived in the house. Through the voices of the TV show, I heard Stella's sharp tone cutting through. "Daniel, this house has become such a mess. It's noisy all the time, and it smells like kids and cheap stuff. Nothing here feels right anymore." I stopped what I was doing, my lips pressed together. My heart pounded in my chest. I told myself to hold it in just a little longer. Just a bit more. But right then, Lily's terrified scream echoed from the living room. Without thinking, I rushed out. The scene that met my eyes made my blood boil. Stella was holding the only toy my daughter truly loved, shaking it in front of her face while Daniel, sitting beside her, let out a mocking laugh. Worse still, he stuck out his leg to block Lily, keeping her from getting her toy back. This cheap, worn-out toy? Why even bother playing with it? It just makes the place look filthy. Stella's voice was sharp like a blade. Daniel just shrugged and chuckled. "Come on, babe, stop teasing her already." But Stella didn't stop. "No, I don't want her here. Just looking at her makes me angry. She's a bastard child." Lily burst into tears, covering her face, crying out in panic. "Mommy! Mommy, help me!" I rushed forward and ripped the toy out of Stella's hands. My eyes were burning, my breathing rapid and ragged. I couldn't hear or see anything else but my daughter being humiliated and bullied. "How long are you going to keep tormenting my child? Are you even human?" Stella flinched and stepped back, but quickly changed her expression. She snapped, her voice shrill with rage. "What the hell is wrong with you? You almost broke my arm snatching that away. I was just playing with her for a bit. Are you insane?" I couldn't hold it in any longer. I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. That slap wasn't just about anger. It was everything I had bottled up over the past few days. It was the final drop that made the glass overflow. Stella screamed, clutching her cheek, her cry echoing throughout the house. "Ah! She hit me! Dad! Mom! Help me! Rose hit me!" I stood there, holding Lily tightly in my arms, my face streaked with tears, but my eyes never left Stella. I waited for what I knew was coming, like someone who had already seen how the story ends. My parents rushed out from the kitchen, their faces stricken with panic. My mother ran to Stella, holding her close, stroking her cheek as she cried out. "Oh God!" She hit her again. "What kind of monster are you? How could you be so cruel to your own sister?" My father froze in place, then pointed straight at me. His voice cut like a blade, full of hatred. "You're evil. I don't have a daughter like you. Get out of my house. Leave now." I held Lily even tighter as she shook in my arms. My tears wouldn't stop, but my voice, when it came out, didn't waver. "You call me evil? You saw me slap her. But did you see what she did to my daughter? She called her a bastard. Did you hear that filth? Did you hear what she said?" Stella stayed in my mother's arms, sobbing loudly. Her voice came out weak and pitiful, full of false innocence. "I didn't say anything like that. I was just joking. She's making it up to frame me. She's jealous because Mom and Dad love me more." Daniel stood pressed against the wall, saying nothing. His silence was just as loud as a confession. He had seen everything, but didn't want to get involved. My mother turned to me, her face flushed red, her voice like a scream. "Get out! I don't want to see your face again. Ever since you came back, you've done nothing but tear this family apart. You're a curse." I looked at each face before me, the faces of those who once called me daughter, who once called me family. But now, all I could see were hatred, prejudice, and cruelty. Stella kept her head down, but in her eyes there was a glint of satisfaction, sharp and frightening. I said nothing more. I turned around, holding Lily close as she sobbed uncontrollably, and walked slowly toward the small room at the end of the hallway. When the door closed behind us, I leaned against the wall. My heart pounded, my throat felt tight. Lily looked up at me, her eyes swollen and red from crying. I kissed her forehead and whispered, as if saying it to myself, "That's enough, truly enough. We don't belong here anymore. Tomorrow morning, we'll leave. Staying here will only bring more humiliation and pain. These people are no longer my family." I sank to the floor, surrounded by old clothes I was hurriedly folding into a faded suitcase. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling gave off a weak yellow glow, making the small room feel even darker. Each time I folded a shirt, I felt a stab in my chest. Lily sat quietly on the edge of the bed, clutching her worn stuffed animal. Her eyes were vacant and swollen from all the crying. I knew, even without words, that her little heart had been deeply hurt. "Mom, where are we going?" Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. I turned to her and forced a smile, though I couldn't tell how much of it was real anymore. "We're going back to the city, sweetheart, to the place we used to live. There's a big park there, colorful toy stores, vanilla ice cream, and the cutest stuffed bunnies you've ever seen." Lily shook her head, tears welling up again. "But I don't want to go. The kids there said I don't have a dad." I pulled her into my arms and held her tight, pressing her small, trembling body against my chest. I looked up at the ceiling, trying to steady myself. My voice came out hoarse with emotion, yet filled with quiet determination. "It's all right. Mommy's here. Just you and me, Lily. As long as we have each other, that's all we need. Everything will be okay." I was about to fold the last shirt when, all of a sudden, strange noises erupted from outside. The roar of powerful engines thundered in rapid succession, charging straight toward the front of the house. Tires screeched sharply, then fell silent just as suddenly. The quiet afternoon in our sleepy neighborhood had turned chaotic in an instant. I shot to my feet, unsure of what was happening. Lily looked up at me with wide, confused eyes. She clung to the hem of my shirt, afraid of something she couldn't yet name. Downstairs, I heard hurried footsteps rushing toward the front door, followed by the excited voices of my mother and Stella. I couldn't make out the exact words, but their tone was a mix of curiosity and delight. I stepped quietly toward the window, pulled the curtain back just enough, and peeked out at the front yard. Parked just outside the gate was a lineup of sleek black luxury cars gleaming under the golden light of the afternoon sun. They stood in perfect formation, like part of a grand arrival. I instantly recognized the signature paint of a Mercedes-Maybach. Next to it, a Range Rover with a custom license plate. These cars didn't belong in this neighborhood, and they certainly didn't belong in the life I was living. I wasn't the only one stunned. My parents and Stella stood frozen in the yard, their faces a mixture of shock and awe. My mother turned to Stella, eyes lit up like lanterns. "Look at that! All those luxury cars! So classy! Who could it be? Maybe one of your friends? Or someone important visiting Daniel's family?" Stella laughed out loud, unable to hide her pride. "Of course. Our family must be about to receive some real luck. Your Stella only knows the best people." The door of the Mercedes-Maybach opened. A tall man stepped out. He wore a tailored suit, and every step he took radiated the confidence of someone experienced and powerful. When he raised his head and looked directly toward the gate, my heart slammed in my chest. I knew that man. Mark. The man I thought I would never see again was now standing in front of our house, under the astonished gaze of my entire family. He spoke, his voice polite yet firm. "Good afternoon. May I ask, is this where Miss Rose lives?" No one answered. All three of them stood frozen like statues, stunned by the unexpected arrival. Finally, it was Stella who snapped out of it first. She quickly adjusted her expression, put on a sweet smile, and took a few graceful steps forward as if to welcome the guest. "Yes, that's right. Rose is my sister. Is there something important you need to speak with her about? Maybe I can help?" But Mark didn't bite. "Thank you, but I really need to speak with her directly. It's a very important matter." "Is she home?" My father responded, his voice slow and slightly cautious. "She's upstairs. But she's..." Before he could finish his sentence, I opened the balcony door and stepped out, looking straight down at the yard. My eyes met Mark's. In that instant, all the surrounding noise seemed to fade away. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart and the echo of that familiar gaze, the one that pulled the past back in like a storm. Down below, the man I had tried so hard to erase from my memory was now standing there, looking up at me. That face, those eyes, that voice. Everything came crashing back into my heart after 4 long years. Mark lifted his head, his eyes lighting up. His voice rang out clearly, even across the distance. "Rose, do you still recognize me?" I couldn't answer. My limbs went weak, my whole body frozen in place. The world around me blurred into silence, leaving only the thunder of my heartbeat in my chest. I turned away quickly, almost running inside. I scooped Lily into my arms, feeling her grip tighten around my neck in fear, and rushed down the stairs, driven by something far stronger than fear itself. As I stepped through the front door, every eye in the yard turned toward me. But Mark saw no one else. His gaze was fixed solely on me. He walked forward, leaving behind the stunned faces without a second thought. His eyes were full of emotion, as if every feature of my face was awakening memories he had carried deep within him for years. Then his eyes shifted to Lily. She looked up at him from my arms, wide-eyed and confused. I could feel Mark's breath catch in that moment. His eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I've been looking for you for 4 years. Every single day. That night was my fault. I was too drunk. When I woke up, you were gone. All you left was a scrap of paper with a phone number I could never reach. I couldn't hold back the tears." My voice trembled as I spoke. "Mark, how did you even find this place?" He looked at me, his eyes steady and sure. "I told you. I was never going to give up. I hired the best private investigators. They followed every tiny clue you left behind. It wasn't until last week that I found out you had returned home. I got on the first flight here. Before we could say anything more, Stella interrupted, her voice drawn out and laced with suspicion and irritation. Rose, you two know each other? You look familiar. Mark didn't react. He didn't even glance at Stella. Right now, for him, there was only me and Lily. He leaned in slightly, his gaze softening as it landed on the child. Then he whispered, his voice tight with emotion. And this little girl. I held Lily closer. My heart felt like it was breaking open. I nodded, the tears streaming down my cheeks without restraint. She's our daughter. Her name is Lily. Mark took another step forward. I noticed his hand trembling slightly as he reached out. He didn't touch her right away. It was as if he feared that one small movement might shatter the moment completely. At last, his large hand gently rested on Lily's cheek. It was a fragile touch, trembling and tender, like he was holding something so precious he couldn't believe it was real. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I came too late. I'm sorry I wasn't there for the beginning of your life. I looked at the two of them. A man who had once caused me the greatest pain now stood there, making my heart stir with emotions I hadn't felt in years. And a little girl, too young to understand what was happening, but whose eyes sparkled as she looked at the man who shared the same eye color. I knew this moment would change everything, and for the first time in years, I felt hope begin to return. I was still frozen in place, overwhelmed by the sudden reunion with Mark, when his hand tightened gently around mine. His eyes held a depth of tenderness and unwavering resolve. He looked straight at me, then glanced toward the neighbors gathered across the yard. His voice rang out, clear and steady. Rose, I didn't come here just to find my child. I came to find you. You and our daughter are the most precious treasures I ever lost. Please give me a chance to make things right, to protect you, to love you both for the rest of my life. I want to marry you. I stood still, my hand resting in his. The entire yard fell silent. Then suddenly, it exploded with murmurs and gasps of astonishment. I saw the stunned look in my mother's eyes. I saw the forced smile on my father's face, and my tears began to fall again, this time out of pure relief and unexpected joy, after so many days of being crushed under pain and silence. But just as I was about to speak, Stella swooped in like a shadow. She looped her arm through mine with forced affection. Oh, Rose, I'm so happy for you. Mark, my sister has suffered so much. All these years, I've done everything I could to support her, comfort her, and stand by her. I flinched at her touch, disgusted, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured down my back. I yanked my arm away as if trying to shake off a layer of filth. My voice was icy, stripped of any politeness. Let go. You don't need to pretend in front of him. The lies you just told make me sick. Stella immediately stepped back, her face shifting color, though she still tried to play her part. Rose, how can you say that about me? I was only trying to help. I really am happy for you. Before anyone else could react, my mother shot up as if someone had just struck her pride. Rose, how dare you speak like that? Your sister is being sincere. How can you be so ungrateful and cruel to her? I looked around at all the faces staring at me as if I were the villain. Then I laughed. It was bitter, sharp, and full of rage. My voice rang out through the yard, every word slicing through their pretenses like a blade. Happy for me? Do you all really want to know what's behind that sweet little smile? I turned to Stella, no longer holding back. This gentle, innocent sister of mine has spent the entire week calling my daughter a bastard. She said the child made the house filthy. She snatched away her only toy. She said I brought home a burden. And my parents? I turned and looked them straight in the eye. You stood by her, called me wicked, called me a monster, and ordered me out of this house. And you dare to call yourselves grandparents? I didn't wait for a single reaction. I walked straight up to Stella. Everything I had buried, every time I bit my tongue, swallowed my tears, all of it rose up in that moment. I slapped her, hard, a clean, furious strike. That was from my daughter. Stella stumbled, clutching her face. This time, there was no more pretending. Her expression twisted with hatred, pain, and a fury that no longer cared to hide. She screamed in front of the stunned crowd. Yeah, I called her a bastard. You think you're something now? You think coming back here with a baby suddenly makes you special? You're just a pathetic failure. You got knocked up, ran off, and now that he's rich and powerful, you come crawling back like some desperate little leech. You're shameless. A gold digger. Stella immediately stepped back, her face shifting color, though she still tried to play her part. Rose. How can you say that about me? I was only trying to help. I really am happy for you. Before anyone else could react, my mother shot up as if someone had just struck her pride. Rose, how dare you speak like that? Your sister is being sincere. How can you be so ungrateful and cruel to her? I looked around at all the faces staring at me, as if I were the villain. Then I laughed. It was bitter, sharp, and full of rage. My voice rang out through the yard, every word slicing through their pretenses like a blade. Happy for me? Do you all really want to know what's behind that sweet little smile? I turned to Stella, no longer holding back. This gentle, innocent sister of mine has spent the entire week calling my daughter a bastard. She said the child made the house filthy. She snatched away her only toy. She said I brought home a burden. And my parents? I turned and looked them straight in the eye. You stood by her, called me wicked, called me a monster, and ordered me out of this house. And you dare to call yourselves grandparents? I didn't wait for a single reaction. I walked straight up to Stella. Everything I had buried, every time I bit my tongue, swallowed my tears, all of it rose up in that moment. I slapped her, hard, a clean, furious strike. That was from my daughter. Stella stumbled, clutching her face. This time, there was no more pretending. Her expression twisted with hatred, pain, and a fury that no longer cared to hide. She screamed in front of the stunned crowd. Yeah, I called her a bastard. You think you're something now? You think coming back here with a baby suddenly makes you special? You're just a pathetic failure. You got knocked up, ran off, and now that he's rich and powerful, you come crawling back like some desperate little leech? You're shameless. A gold digger. Her words were like a bomb going off. Stella, already furious after being exposed, was now publicly humiliated by the very man she had tried to charm. She completely lost control, screaming at the top of her lungs. Who the hell do you think you are, lecturing me like that? Just because you've got a little dirty money, you think you can look down on everyone? I'll insult my sister's kid all I want. What the hell does that have to do with you? Before I could react, Mark did. Without saying another word, he raised his hand so quickly that no one around even had time to register what was happening. The slap echoed like a gunshot, a sharp, violent crack that sliced through the air. Stella stumbled backward, barely catching herself before falling down the front steps. She clutched her face, stunned, horrified. Everyone around fell silent. My mother's mouth hung open. My father could only stare at Mark, as if struggling to believe what he had just seen. Mark didn't move. He stood exactly where he was, his expression cold and unwavering. His voice, low and measured, cut through the stillness like a blade. "You'd better shut that filthy mouth of yours before I make sure you disappear from this little town." That line hit like a sentence being handed down. No one even dared to breathe. Mark didn't need to raise his voice to be commanding. He didn't have to shout to be intimidating. The way he stood there, shielding me and Lily with quiet authority, said everything. His presence alone demanded respect. I could feel it. Stella felt it. So did my parents. No one said a word. Not because they suddenly felt guilty, but because they realized they were standing in front of someone they couldn't touch. Stella, slapped, humiliated, and stripped of all pretense, was no longer thinking clearly. She shrieked, her voice shrill with fury. "You bastard! You son of a bitch! How dare you hit me? You think just because you're rich you can do whatever you want? You'll regret this. I swear you will." I was still trying to catch my breath after Mark's fierce act of protection when the roar of a motorcycle tore through the tense afternoon air. The engine screeched to a halt right outside the gate. The man who jumped off was none other than Daniel, Stella's new boyfriend. His face was tight with worry, eyes scanning the yard quickly, as if searching for answers in the chaos unfolding before him. Stella reacted instantly, like a drowning person clinging to the last straw. She ran to him, throwing herself into his arms, tears and snot smearing her face, her voice trembling as if she'd just escaped some kind of nightmare. "Daniel, help me! That man, he hit me and threatened to kill me. He even attacked my parents." She pointed straight at Mark, her face twisted into the perfect image of the wronged and helpless, as if the entire world had conspired to hurt her, while she was nothing but a fragile victim. I said nothing, holding Lily tightly in my arms, unwilling to interrupt. I wanted to see what Mark would do next. Daniel turned. I could see the anger forming behind his eyes. But then, the moment he locked eyes with Mark, something shifted. His expression changed completely. His face drained of color. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. He stepped back, as though he were standing in front of a force far beyond his control. His voice shook. "Vice President? What? What are you doing here, sir?" The entire yard fell silent. Every whisper stopped midair. All eyes turned to Mark in stunned disbelief. Stella, my parents, everyone stood frozen, eyes wide, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. Mark stepped forward slowly. His voice was calm and even, but it carried the edge of steel. "I'm handling a private matter. And you are?" Daniel bent low in a nervous bow, his words stumbling out. "Sir, I'm Daniel. I'm Robert's son. Robert from the finance department. Last week I attended the partner summit with my father. I had the honor of seeing you speak on stage." Mark gave a subtle nod, his eyes still locked on Daniel. "Ah, Director Robert. I remember now. And this young lady," he gestured towards Stella, "is a friend of yours. She just greeted me with some very special words. You two seem rather close." Daniel was now drenched in sweat, his face stretched tight with fear. I noticed his hands trembling slightly. He understood. One sentence from Mark could bury his entire family's future. He whipped around to face Stella, his voice now filled with panic and fury. "Stella, have you lost your mind? You insulted Vice President Mark? Do you have any idea what you've done? You could destroy my career. You could destroy my whole family." Stella stammered, her face drained of all color. "No, Daniel, I didn't know." But Daniel didn't let her finish. He shouted, voice shaking with rage. "Shut up. I don't know someone as vulgar, ignorant, and reckless as you. We're done. As of this moment, there is nothing between us. Nothing." Stella collapsed to the ground like her body had been emptied of all strength. She grabbed Daniel's leg, crying without the slightest sense of dignity. "No, Daniel, please. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Don't leave me. Please don't do this to me. Daniel kicked her off sharply, sending her stumbling backward. Then he turned to Mark, his face shifting from anger to desperation. Vice President Mark, I truly had no idea any of this was happening. What she said has nothing to do with me or my family. Please, I'm begging you, don't let her actions affect my father's position. He's devoted his entire career to the company. Mark didn't respond right away. His eyes lingered on Daniel, as if weighing every breath, every flicker of sincerity. Then, finally, he cut in, his voice cold and absolute. We'll talk about that later. Right now, I need to handle Rose's family first. Hearing those words was like a pardon granted. Daniel bowed quickly, almost clumsily, then rushed back to his motorcycle. He didn't look back, not even once. The engine screamed as he sped off, leaving behind a girl collapsed in the dirt, crying in despair, her hair a mess and her face soaked in tears. I stood still, watching the scene unfold. There was no satisfaction in me, just the quiet realization that every wound I had carried was now being returned in the form of a lesson, one that could never be forgotten. For the person who had so cruelly trampled on me and my daughter, this was only the beginning of the reckoning. As the chaos and fury finally began to settle, I thought I could leave this place in silence. But then, like someone waking from a long, deluded dream, my mother suddenly rushed forward and grabbed my hand. The same hand that once pushed me out the door now trembled with fear. Her voice, once sharp and commanding, was now filled with pleading. There was nothing left of the woman who had screamed cruel words into my face. Rose, please, talk to Mark. Stella's still young. She made a mistake. She knows she was wrong. Please, ask him not to be angry. Don't let this destroy our family. Don't let it ruin her future. Before I could say anything, my father spoke up too. He stood behind her, his face drawn and weary. The stern man I had met on the day I returned was gone. My daughter, I know I was wrong. I'm sorry, but we can't lose everything. Please, have mercy on your mother, on your sister. I looked at them both. These were the same people who once called my daughter a bastard. The same people who turned away while I was humiliated. Now their faces were pitiful, desperate, pleading for salvation from the very child they had once cast aside. I gently, but firmly, pulled my hand out of my mother's grasp. Then I took a step back, standing close beside Mark, as if to make it clear that I no longer belonged to this place. I looked them straight in the eye. No, you told me to leave. You called my daughter a burden, a bastard. You stood there and said nothing while she was bullied, while she was humiliated. From now on, my daughter and I have nothing to do with this house. I turned to Mark, my voice soft but resolute. Let's go. He nodded. One arm cradled Lily, who was fast asleep on his shoulder, while the other wrapped around me, pulling me close. Together, we walked toward the luxury car waiting at the gate. None of us looked back. Behind us was a familiar house, now cold and hollow, with people who once cast us aside now left standing there, eyes wide, faces full of regret and disbelief. Ahead of us was a future that belonged to me and my daughter. A future without shame, without tears born from cruelty. A place where we would never again have to lower our heads under anyone's judgment. As the car passed through the gated entrance of the private estate, I couldn't hide the feeling of wonder. Neatly trimmed trees lined the road. Walls covered in bougainvillea bloomed quietly in the golden light. The wide, peaceful courtyard felt like we were entering another world. A world where kindness and warmth were not something to beg for. Mark pulled up in front of a white villa. The afternoon sun glinted off the large glass windows, reflecting the vast blue sky. He turned to me, took my hand in his, and said gently, "We're home." When the door opened, a kind-faced woman appeared. She didn't need to ask who I was. Her eyes immediately found Lily. A wide, radiant smile spread across her face, her gaze as warm as morning sunlight. "So, you're finally home, and this must be my granddaughter. She's beautiful. Looks just like Mark when he was little." She bent down and opened her arms without hesitation. Lily didn't hold back. She ran into that embrace as if she had been waiting for it all her life. I watched them and felt my nose begin to sting. From behind, a tall man stepped forward. His hair was streaked with silver, but his eyes were kind and bright. He walked up, placed a hand on Mark's shoulder, and gave a nod of approval. "Son, you finally brought them home. I'm proud of you." Mark squeezed my hand, then turned to face his parents. "Mom, Dad, this is Rose, the woman I've always told you about. And this is your granddaughter. Her name is Lily. I'm going to give her the wedding she truly deserves." Before I could even react, Mark's mother took my hand in hers. Her palms were soft and warm, as if passing me a peace I had never known. "Call me Mom, dear. From now on, this is your home. Don't be formal. You gave our family this beautiful little angel. That makes you a blessing to us all." Mark's father didn't say another word. He lifted Lily high into the air, spinning her in a wide circle until she burst into laughter. Then, with a voice full of pride, he declared, as though addressing the entire family council, "From this moment on, Lily is our treasure. She is the jewel of this family. She will be loved and protected, always." Laughter filled the villa. A sense of peace settled into every breath. I had once believed that I would never know what it felt like to have a home again. But sometimes, when you dare to walk away from the shadows, the world greets you with open doors and a heart wide open. 2 months later, the old house I had once walked away from no longer echoed with laughter or life. Everything seemed drenched in a dull, lifeless gray. On the dinner table sat nothing but a plate of boiled vegetables and a few small, cold pieces of dried fish. The kitchen that once smelled of my mother's cooking for Stella had fallen into a silence that chilled the bones. Stella sat slouched at the table, her face gaunt, her hair brittle and unkempt. With a flick of her chopsticks, she knocked the plate of fish onto the floor and screamed in frustration. "Is this all we ever eat now? All day it's just dried fish and boiled vegetables." "What are you even cooking, Mom? Honestly, pigs are eating better than I am right now." My mother didn't respond. She just quietly crouched down to pick up the scattered fish from the floor. Her voice came out tired, almost defeated. "Please, just be a little more patient. We don't have any money left. Everything we saved, it all went to your schooling, your clothes, your makeup, everything you ever wanted." Stella jumped to her feet, her eyes red and wild. "Patient? How am I supposed to be patient?" I was humiliated, slapped, dumped by Daniel in the middle of a crowded market. People in this neighborhood look at me like I'm filth. They whisper. They laugh behind my back. And now, her words broke off. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her voice turned hoarse. "Now I find out I'm almost 3 months pregnant with that bastard's child." The entire room went silent. My parents stood still, drained, like the years had suddenly caught up with them all at once. No one said a word, but we all knew the truth. The real disaster was just beginning. Stella kept talking through her sobs. "I went to his house. I begged them to let me in. I begged like I had no pride left. And his mother? She slammed the door in my face. She told me not to even dream of dragging my bastard into their family. Said Daniel's already moved on, already has a new girlfriend. She called my baby a bastard. A bastard. Then she laughed. That sharp, broken laugh. It sounded like she was ripping herself apart from the inside. That word. The one you all used to insult Rose's daughter. It's come back around, hasn't it? This time, it's your precious child who's being spit on. All of this. It's because of her. Because of that woman. Rose destroyed me. My father slammed his hand against the table. The plates and utensils clattered loudly. That's enough. Stop talking. There's no point going on about it now. You brought this on yourself. You've always been rude, spoiled, reckless, and now you're pregnant. What do you expect us to do? How are we supposed to take care of a baby? Stella shrieked and kicked the chair over. Oh, so now I'm worthless? Now that you can't suck up to Rose and her rich vice president fiancé anymore? I'm suddenly a burden? You have to take care of me. You owe me that. You raised me like I was the only one who mattered. You gave me everything. And now that I'm in trouble, you're just going to walk away? No one said a word. My parents just stood there, staring at each other. No blame, no anger. Only one thing remained in their eyes, a quiet helplessness. For the first time, they truly saw it. The seed they had planted through years of favoritism, indulgence, and blind love had finally grown into something bitter. Now they were the ones forced to taste it, to swallow every sharp piece of what they had created. Stella collapsed to the floor, covering her face as loud sobs broke from her chest. But this time, no one moved to comfort her. There was no mother rushing to defend her, no father softening his tone. Only her cries echoed off the cold, empty walls of what once was a home. Now, it was nothing more than the shadow of a family that had long since fallen apart. I sat in the living room, bathed in the soft golden light of the lamp. The air felt calm and warm, wrapping around us like a blanket. Lily rested her head on my lap, listening intently as I read her a story. Every time I changed my voice for a different character, she giggled softly, her laughter light and pure. The room felt woven with threads of peace and comfort, fragile and bright. The phone rang, interrupting my reading. I froze for a moment, glanced at the screen, and saw an unfamiliar number. No name, no contact saved. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But then, with a strange sense of calm, I picked it up. My mother's voice came through the line. It no longer carried that sharp, commanding tone I had known all my life. Instead, it sounded weak, trembling, almost pleading. Rose, please, you have to help your sister. You have to help this family. Stella is pregnant. Daniel's family refuses to take her in. She's sick, Rose. We have no money left. Nothing at all. I said nothing. I simply listened. Not because I was thinking, but because there was nothing left to think about. If she had said those words to me years ago, maybe I would have cried. Maybe I would have run home. But now, my heart was still. It was like a lake after the storm, smooth and quiet. No ripples, no waves, no pity left inside me. My mother must have sensed the silence. She started speaking faster, her voice tightening, more desperate with every word. Tell Mark to help us. He knows people. He has influence. He could force Daniel's family to take responsibility. After all, we're family now, aren't we? I narrowed my eyes and let out a soft laugh. Not because it was funny. It was bitter. Family? I lifted my head and looked out at the front garden. The rose bushes Mark planted were swaying gently in the wind. Then I spoke, slowly, my voice low but clear, each word sharp like a blade honed to perfection. When you threw me and my daughter out, when you called us a burden, ungrateful, did you see us as family for even 1 second? When you stood there in silence while Stella called my child a bastard, did you think of her as your granddaughter then? My mother's voice cracked on the other end. She stammered, trying to cut in, but her voice faded before she could finish. I didn't let her finish. No. There is no but. You're not calling me because you miss me, and certainly not because you regret anything. You're calling because I finally became useful to you. Because I married a powerful man. You don't see me as your daughter. You see me as a bridge, a tool to fix the mess your precious daughter made. I used to be your paycheck. Now you want me to be her shield. Isn't that right? Silence. That silence said everything. I exhaled slowly, then spoke for the last time. This ended the day you screamed at me to get out. From this moment on, there's nothing between us. Don't ever call me again. I ended the call. No hesitation. My fingers moved quickly, blocking the number as if severing a decayed cord that had long overstayed its place in my life. And in that moment, I felt something unexpected. Relief. As if I had finally unfastened the invisible chain that had been weighing down my heart for years. Mark stepped out from the hallway behind me. He didn't ask anything. He simply walked over and wrapped his arms around me from behind. His voice was low and steady, a whisper close to my ear. You did the right thing. A wound can only truly heal when we're brave enough to cut away the part that's already turned to rot. I turned to face him and rested my head against his chest. That solid feeling, that familiar scent, was all the proof I needed. I was in the right place, with the right person. From the room, Lily came running out, her tiny feet pattering across the soft carpet. She wrapped her arms around my legs and looked up at us with a beaming smile. Mommy, Daddy, it's cake time. I bent down and lifted her into my arms. Her eyes sparkled, and her little mouth curled into a grin so wide it melted everything inside me. I kissed her cheek, and the warmth of that moment spread through me like sunlight after a long winter. Her laughter, Mark's gentle gaze. This home bathed in quiet light and peace. This was the family I had never known, but had finally found. In the end, I had discovered my true home. The sweetest form of revenge was never to make those who hurt you suffer. It was to live in joy so complete, so undeniable, that they would be forced to see that your life only truly began without them. And now, I have a new family. One built on love that asks for nothing in return, on respect that doesn't need to be earned through pain. A life where I can simply exist, held by hearts that are real and warm. My happiness is just beginning. If you've ever been hurt by your own family, I hope this story gives you strength. You don't have to stay and keep suffering. Starting over is an act of courage, and sometimes it's the only path to true freedom. If this story touched something deep inside you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Revenge Diary for more emotional and powerful stories. We're always here, telling the truths no one else dares to say.